Hey, this is Malfunkin. I'm in the studio. I was going to be designing a Reese Bass today. So I wanted to just kind of share that process. Maybe my first live Instagram video, so pardon me if I'm not privy to things. But we're going to try this out. We got Reaper here. I got my electrons, spectral analyzer. Here's my modular setup that we'll be using for hardware and my mixer. So those of you that don't know, the Reese Bass is a famous bass design that I think it was developed in the late 90s by an artist named Reese, and it became really popular, usually in UK garage. So I had a vocalist in the studio the other day. We laid down some vocals, and I wanted to do kind of like a UK garage version, inspired by like Over Mono and Fred Again. So I was just designing a Reese Bass using my hardware, and I thought I would just share that process. Most Reese Bass tutorials are all the same couple plugins, but once you understand the concepts behind it, you can do your own variations of it. But I don't have nobody's watching right now, so I might just wait a couple seconds. But just a little preview of what it sounds like right here. Actually, let me see. Let me turn up some of this. A little bit of an idea. Let's see. So that's what we're going to be designing. And I want to just kind of show how I'm going to be doing this. So let's see. First of all, I just have a MIDI controller going into Reaper here. Let's see, what channel is that? Right here. So you can see the MIDI going. And then I'm forwarding that MIDI over USB to my Behringer ARP 2600 remake analog synth. You've heard this synth before, and they use this synth for all the robot sounds for Star Wars. Edgar Winter's group used it for Frankenstein. The Who used it. They ran their guitars through it. Old 70s remake synth. So I'm sending my MIDI into the synth, and then we're taking the pitch CV and I'm duplicating it with a buffer. So we're taking the pitch data and I'm running that into my piston Honda here. So this piston Honda is a three-dimensional wavetable synth oscillator. So we got, 1 dimension, 2 dimension, 3 dimension. Let me unplug that. And you can see, like right here, you can morph between the different wavetables. And there's 2 of them. So what I'm doing is I'm actually controlling these wavetables with these 3 inputs from my frames. And this is a remake of the frames, a smaller form. And basically I can pick a frame, set my levels, save them, add another frame, set levels, save them, and every time I do this, it's controlling these 3 inputs. So I'm able to kind of morph between different waveforms here. The other thing I wanted to do is I wanted to make sure these 2 waveforms don't match. So on the second one, I can change the settings here. And you'll see the first waveform is slightly different from the second one. This adds a lot of overtones, and we get a bunch of a bunch of details in harmonic series. So this first pitch is going into wavetable 1, and then I send the output of that back into my 2600, into my inputs here. So if we want to hear the first wavetable, I'm gonna, let's see, turn on my filter, let's hit a key. So that's our quote-unquote root note. I put it up an octave, and then I put the second wavetable up a fifth. So from that, so we're going to have our root and then our second. And I'm just going to hold that on. Let's hold this note on. So there's our fifth, there's our root, 1, 5, and we can see the waveforms here. So there's our root, and a fifth up from that. And then when you put them together, and what's interesting about this is you hear this all the time when you do a 1-5 like that. You're basically emulating the first 2 harmonic series, and your brain automatically puts the note an octave below that of what the actual root note should be, because the octave and a fifth above that is the first harmonics of your harmonic series. So if you emulate the first harmonic series, your brain fills in that subharmonic an octave lower. So a lot of people do this, like Daft Punk and other things in their bass design. That way they can keep their kicks in the subs and then have a bass sound that is tricking the brain. It's an illusion that it's an octave lower, but it's not. That way it doesn't step on those subs. Right? So what we did here is we created the illusion of being an octave lower without actually being an octave lower. But we actually do want to hit those subs. So what we do is we send another pitch out. This time I'm going into my Deckard's voice, and I'm just taking a sine wave out of here on that octave lower where your brain kind of fills that note in. We're actually just going to fill that note in. So if I hold the note again, there's our 1 and our 5. And if I take those out and we start putting up the sine wave, you probably can't hear this on your phone, but there's our root. And you can see that we got a couple overtones here. That's the octave and the 5 that we were talking about. And the reason why they're here is because this is an analog synthesizer, and I'm going into an analog filter. So naturally, these analog machines are going to add saturation, and saturation is going to bring out those harmonics, even if they're not there. So that's what this is. Those harmonics are because I'm using analog gear. If I was doing this in the box in the computer, you wouldn't see those harmonics. So there's our sine, and then I'm going to turn up our first waveform right here, and you'll see it take that first harmonic and then once I turn up my second waveform, it's going to fill all that out. So that's kind of the foundation right there. Now, one of the key elements of a Reese bass is movement. You want movement in your bass. So that's why I picked the piston Honda here. Remember the frames here, I can actually change the shape of our waveforms. So that's what I'm going to use for my movement. So we've already programmed some frames in here to morph between different waveforms. See the morphing. So what I did was I take my maths here, which is an analog computer, and I'm going to take just this LFO. I set it on cycle, put a slow LFO. You can see it kind of moving here, right? And then I'm going to run that LFO into my frames. So it's slowly turning this knob up and down. And now you can see my waveforms morphing. And that's going to add the movement for our Reese Bass design. So now when we hear this, let's check out the waveform. So there we have our sub hitting our subs, nice clean sine, or as clean as we can get with analog, and then an octave above and a fifth above that, and those are morphing our waveforms. The original Reese Bass design was with a phase distortion, and from the 90s. It was like a Yamaha synth from the 90s, digital. Right now I'm using a wavetable by Industrial Music Electronics. And this is their Piston Honda, which is a wavetable, but this guy also makes Hertz Donut, which is actually a phase distortion module. So there's many ways to do this, but yeah. Now, after I have this, I'm going to hold this note down. There's our thing. Take my filter. We're going to take the filter down. So I got a slow attack, slow decay, sustains down a little bit, and hard sustain. Got my filter up here. Right. I can take this note off. So every time I hit a note, we're going to get this envelope sweep. And this ARP 2600 is actually using a ladder filter. This one lets me switch between two. The guy who designed this was sued by Moog for using his ladder filter design, so he reverse engineered a completely different ladder filter of his own design. So this model lets me switch between the classic Moog ladder that he got sued for and the new one that he developed to bypass the copyright law. So a nice little filter on here. And then after it comes into my computer, we're going to be doing some processing. So let's see, I just have a gate here so we don't get any noise. Delay to make sure it's in time with my song, a little gain. I run it over here into my bass bus, where we're going to be applying an LA2A, and then a compressor to sidechain with the kick drum, and then I got a little bit of an EQ to dip that sub out a little bit. Let's see. Oh yeah, I also want like a little bit of distortion on here, mixed to 50%, just to get a little crunch on that. And so after we do all the processing and everything, this is kind of what it sounds like. I should add, the final step I did here was I added some portamento. So we're going to slide between those notes. And that is my Reese Bass design using hardware. And here's my track. I got my drum machine going. I'm running some pads into my analog 4, and I recorded some vocals. So I'll give a little run up to where the bass comes in. Let's hear it. Yep, and there you have it. We got our Reese Bass, we got it in our track. Sounds nice and clean. And that is how I'm designing this particular Reese Bass. Hope you liked it.